Every year, more of what we eat comes out of a factory, not a kitchen. And a new study just found the exact point where that stops being a minor habit and starts being a real diabetes risk. Researchers pooled data from over 700,000 people and found that once your ultra-processed food intake crosses roughly 300 grams a day, about 1 can of soda, the risk curve gets a lot steeper. This is the largest dose-response analysis ever done on ultra-processed food and type 2 diabetes. It was published in Diabetes and Metabolism Journal by a team led by Eugene Kim, and it is open access, so anyone can read the full paper. First, a quick definition, because ultra-processed food is a very specific scientific category, not just a synonym for junk food. Under the NOVA classification system, foods are split into 4 groups by how industrially processed they are. Group 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed food, like fresh vegetables or plain rice. Group 4, ultra-processed foods, are industrial formulations made from fractions of whole foods, reassembled with additives like preservatives, emulsifiers, and artificial sweeteners. Think sugary drinks, frozen ready meals, packaged snacks, instant noodles, most breakfast cereals. These products tend to be energy-dense, high in fat, sugar, and sodium, and low in fiber. That combination makes it very easy to overeat without feeling full, which is one obvious pathway to weight gain and, eventually, diabetes. But the researchers wanted to know something more specific than just calories. Does ultra-processed food raise diabetes risk on its own, independent of how many calories you eat, how good your overall diet is, or your body weight? A previous meta-analysis had already looked at this, but it only combined 7 studies, all from Western countries, and it only measured intake one way, as a percentage of total food weight. This new study set out to fix both of those gaps. To answer the question properly, the team combined 12 prospective cohort studies, the gold standard for this kind of question, since people are tracked forward in time before they develop disease, rather than asked to recall their past diet. The studies covered 5 countries in Europe, the United States and Canada in North America, plus South Korea, Brazil, and Australia. That geographic spread matters, because most previous research on this topic only looked at Western populations, and diets differ a lot around the world. In total, the analysis covered 714,199 participants and 38,308 new cases of type 2 diabetes. The protocol was registered in advance on Prospero, the International Registry for Systematic Reviews, and the study followed the Moose guidelines for observational research, which is a strong signal the researchers weren't fishing for a specific result. 2 researchers independently screened the studies and pulled the data, and a third checked their work for accuracy, standard practice for a rigorous meta-analysis. They also rated the quality of every included study using the Newcastle-Ottawa scale. Most scored 7 or higher out of a possible 9, meaning the underlying evidence was generally solid. So what did they actually find? People in the highest category of ultra-processed food intake had a 48% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to people in the lowest category. That's a risk ratio of 1.48, and it held up even after adjusting for diet quality, total calorie intake, and body mass index. In other words, this wasn't just about eating more or eating worse food overall. Something about the ultra-processing itself appears to matter. Now here's where it gets genuinely useful, because the researchers didn't stop at a single risk ratio. They calculated the risk per unit of intake in 3 different ways, using statistical models that estimate a dose-response trend across all the studies combined. Every 10% increase in the proportion of your daily food that's ultra-processed raised diabetes risk by 14%. Every additional 100 grams per day raised risk by 5%. And every extra serving per day raised risk by 4%. Those numbers alone are useful, but the real discovery was in the shape of the curve for grams per day, modeled using a technique called restricted cubic splines, which can detect bends in the relationship that a simple straight line would miss. And it wasn't a straight line. Below roughly 300 grams a day, risk rose gradually. Above that threshold, the slope got noticeably steeper. 300 grams is roughly the weight of one standard can of soda, or one large fast food meal. And critically, the researchers found no upper limit. Risk kept climbing the more people ate, with no point where it leveled off. Now, not all ultra-processed foods carried the same risk, and this might be the most actionable part of the whole study. When the team broke down the results by specific food category, processed meat stood out as the worst offender. Think ham, sausages, bacon, cold cuts. Processed meat intake was linked to a 34% higher diabetes risk, likely driven by its high sodium and saturated fat content, and by nitrites and nitrates used as preservatives. Sugar-sweetened and artificially sweetened beverages came next, with a 5% higher risk per unit increase. But here's the twist. Ultra-processed breads and cereals and packaged savory snacks like chips were actually associated with slightly lower diabetes risk, not higher. The researchers think this is because many of those products contain whole grains or fiber, which can blunt the blood sugar response, even though they're technically still ultra-processed by the NOVA definition. So the category label alone doesn't tell the whole story. What's inside matters as much as how it was made. Category label alone doesn't tell the whole story. What's inside matters as much as how it was made. The researchers also found the association was strongest in Europe and North America, with a 55% higher risk in both regions, compared to a 29% higher risk elsewhere. Their best explanation is that European and North American diets simply contain more processed meat, the single worst subgroup identified in this analysis. Now, an important mechanistic question: how much of this is really about body weight? When the researchers adjusted specifically for body mass index, the association weakened, but it didn't disappear. Risk was still 29% higher in the top category. That suggests weight gain explains part of the effect, but not all of it. Something independent of body weight appears to be happening too. One leading hypothesis involves food additives themselves, things like emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners, which some research suggests can disrupt the gut microbiome and promote insulin resistance, separate from any calories they add. A quick note on serving size, since it's the easiest unit to picture. One serving in this study is roughly what you'd expect. 1 can of soda, 1 slice of packaged bread, 1 small bag of chips. So 4 servings a day, easily hit by breakfast cereal, a mid-morning snack, a soda at lunch and a dessert, already puts you at roughly 16% higher risk on that measure alone, before even factoring in the nonlinear jump past 300 grams. It's also worth remembering that type 2 diabetes doesn't appear overnight. These are long-term cohort studies, following people for years, sometimes decades, which is exactly the kind of timeline where small daily habits compound into measurable disease risk. That long view is part of why researchers trust prospective cohort studies so much more than a single snapshot survey. The researchers also checked whether results changed when they removed one study at a time from the analysis, a method called a sensitivity analysis, and the overall result stayed stable no matter which study was excluded. They did find moderate to high statistical variation between studies, which is common in nutrition research, given how differently diet gets measured across countries and cultures. The study does have real limitations worth knowing about. Most of the underlying studies estimated diet using food frequency questionnaires, tools that weren't originally built to classify foods by processing level, which can introduce measurement error. And like any observational study, it can show a strong association, but it cannot prove direct causation on its own. Still, the researchers ran a statistical test for publication bias, called Egger's test, and found no evidence that positive results were being cherry-picked into the published literature. And the fact that the association held up across such different populations, on 3 continents, using 3 different ways of measuring intake, makes this one of the more convincing pieces of evidence on the topic to date. So what's the practical takeaway? This isn't a call to fear every packaged product in your kitchen. It's a much more specific message. Processed meat and sugary drinks appear to carry the real weight of this risk, while some other ultra-processed staples, like whole grain bread, are far less concerning and may even help. If you're looking for one number to remember, it's 300 grams a day, roughly 1 soda can's worth, as the point where the risk curve visibly steepens. This video was based directly on the full peer-reviewed study, not a press release or a headline. Source: Kim Y. Cho Y. Kim J. E. Lee DHOH. Ultra-processed food intake and risk of type 2 diabetes mellitus, a dose-response meta-analysis of prospective studies. Diabetes and Metabolism Journal 2025. Open access, CC by NC. DOI 10. 4093/DMJ.2024.0706. This video is for general health and science information only. It is not medical advice. If you're concerned about your diabetes risk, talk to a qualified healthcare professional. More health science explained clearly at nexuscience.com. Subscribe for more deep dives into real peer-reviewed research, explained without the hype.